The Doll's Curse, Maribeth's Awakening. The doll's arrival. The mailbox was unremarkable, a battered relic of peeling paint and rusted hinges standing guard at the end of the long gravel driveway. Every afternoon, Clara Harper crossed the threshold of her new home, an inheritance from a grandmother she barely remembered, and checked the mail, half expecting bills and the occasional postcard from her aunt in Maine. But today, something unfamiliar lay waiting, a small, unmarked wooden crate. Its surface scuffed as though it had traveled far beyond the reach of ordinary carriers. Clara knelt, her knees crunching against the gravel. She brushed away a shard of rusted metal and lifted the crate onto her lap. The wood was cool and smooth under her fingers, the scent of aged cedar curling up to her nose. No label, no return address, only a faint scrawl of red ink on one side. Do not open until nightfall. Her heart stuttered at the warning, curiosity warring with caution. It felt like a dare, a challenge thrown down by some mischievous spirit. Clara glanced back at the house, its Victorian silhouette looming against the pale afternoon sky, windows dark and empty like eyes. She stood and carried the crate inside, feeling the hairs on her arms rise with anticipation. Inside, the air was stale, redolent of dust and lavender sachets left by her grandmother. Clara set the crate on the kitchen table, its legs wobbling on the uneven floorboards. The house was still settling from the winter freeze. Somewhere deep within the walls, a door creaked as if someone or something moved behind it. She traced the red ink with her fingertip, the letters jagged and uneven. They almost looked like they had been carved with a blade rather than written with a pen. Her pulse quickened. Something about the message felt ancient, ritualistic. Clara glanced at the clock on the mantel. 3:14 p.m. Plenty of time before nightfall. Yet every instinct screamed that she should wait. But her curiosity, like a hungry animal, pounded at her chest. She pulled a small knife from the kitchen drawer and set to work on the nails holding the lid in place. As the last nail gave way, the lid creaked open, revealing a porcelain doll, nestled in shredded velvet. Its face was pale, too perfect, with glass eyes that reflected the dim light. She was dressed in a faded blue frock, lace at the collar yellowed with age. Her hair was a tangle of raven curls, tied with a ribbon that might once have been pink. Clara inhaled sharply. She had seen antique dolls before, but something about this one felt alive. She reached out, trembling, and lifted her to eye level. The doll's gaze was unblinking, her lips curved in a slight, knowing smile. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and the lights flickered. Clara's breath caught. She lowered the doll onto the table, backing away until her shoulder brushed the edge of the cabinet. The doll sat upright, propped by a wooden stand, as though waiting for her. A memory surfaced, childhood nightmares of dolls that whispered secrets in the dark. She shook her head, trying to dispel the unease. Grandmother had collected antiques. Perhaps this was part of the inheritance, delivered late by mistake. She ran a hand through her hair. "Okay, old girl," she whispered. "Let's see who sent you." The sun dipped below the horizon as Clara rummaged through the crate for any clue. Beneath the doll lay a folded piece of parchment. Its edges singed and brittle. She unfolded it carefully, reading the elegant script. In darkness, she remembers. In silence, she listens. Tonight, you will see what I have seen. No signature, no hint of origin. The message sent a chill through her veins. She folded the parchment and tucked it into her pocket, resolving to inspect the doll under the cover of night as the message instructed. Dinner passed in uneasy silence. Clara's appetite vanished, replaced by a tremulous excitement. She tried to focus on the pasta in front of her, but kept seeing the doll's pale face hovering over her shoulder. By the time she cleared the dishes, the house had plunged into darkness. The only light came from a single lamp on the desk in her study, casting long shadows that stretched like claws across the walls. She carried the doll into the room, setting her gently on the desk. The lamp's glow caught in the doll's glass eyes, making them gleam. Clara drew a deep breath and sat in the leather chair, pulling her legs close to her chest. The air was thick, as though the house itself held its breath. She studied the doll, searching for any flaw, any imperfection that might betray its origins. But its porcelain skin was flawless. Not a crack, not a blemish. Its dress was frayed at the edges, but the lace was intact, delicate as spider silk. Clara reached out to lift the doll again, and her fingertips brushed the cool porcelain. The moment she touched her, a whisper skittered across her mind, a single word. Home. She recoiled, heart hammering. The doll sat motionless, expression unchanged. Clara pressed her palms to her ears, willing herself to be rational. It was her imagination, stress from the move, exhaustion from unpacking. But then the whisper came again, clearer this time. Clara. Her name. The doll spoke her name. She leapt from the chair, stumbling backward into the bookshelf. A cascade of books tumbled to the floor, the thud echoing through the silent room. Clara's breath came in ragged gasps as she backed away until her spine hit the wall. The lamp flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Clara fumbled for her phone, the screen's light like a lifeline. She scanned the room. The doll sat alone on the desk, its eyes gleaming in the glow. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice trembling. No answer, only the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen down the hall. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat in the study, phone in hand, scrolling through forums about haunted objects, antique dolls, and paranormal encounters. Every story ended the same. The doll's owner disappeared, or worse. At 2:07 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You can't run." She froze, staring at the words. She typed back, "Who is this?" No response. She tried calling the number. It went straight to voicemail. With shaking hands, she saved the number as unknown. A creak from the hallway made her jump. She shone the phone's light toward the door. The corridor was empty, the portraits on the walls swaying as though disturbed by a passing breeze. Clara exhaled slowly, the tension knotting in her chest. She knew she should leave the house, drive to a friend's place, anything. But something held her back, an invisible tether binding her to the doll. She thought of her grandmother's stories, tales of family curses and restless spirits. She had dismissed them as fairy tales, but now she wondered if there was truth in them. Her grandmother had never spoken of this doll. A new message appeared on her phone. He waits. Clara's blood ran cold. She backed into the chair and pressed her feet against the desk, ready to push off and run. But her eyes were drawn to the doll. Its head had turned, facing her directly. The hair ribbon was undone, a strand of hair falling across one cheek. The eyes, once glossy and new, seemed cloudy, as though filled with tears. Clara shook her head. No, this wasn't happening. She stood, advancing on the desk, intent on destroying the doll, anything to end this nightmare. But as she reached out, the doll's lips parted, and a tiny, cracked voice whispered, "Don't be afraid." Clara's hand froze inches from the porcelain. She could feel the words echoing in her mind, soft and coaxing. The doll's eyes glimmered with an unnatural light. "Why are you here?" Clara choked out. The doll's voice came again, fragile as moth wings. "To bring you home." Clara staggered back, heart pounding so loud she was sure it would burst through her chest. "Home?" The doll's head tilted, as though studying her reaction. "Home is waiting." A thunderous crack split the air. The study door slammed shut, though Clara had not touched it. She lunged forward, yanking at the handle. It wouldn't budge. She spun, eyes wide with panic. The doll sat serenely on the desk, its voice gone. Clara's phone buzzed again. Soon. The lights flickered back on, and the door swung open with a creak. Clara bolted out of the room, the doll's laughter childlike, innocent, echoing behind her. She raced down the hall, bursting into the foyer and out the front door. The cold night air hit her like a wall. She paused on the porch, gasping for breath, heart still racing. The house stood silent, its windows dark. The doll remained inside, waiting. By dawn, Clara had called her friend Lisa and driven to her apartment 20 miles away. She cradled a mug of coffee in trembling hands, the warmth seeping into her palms. She explained everything, her voice hoarse. Lisa listened, eyes wide. "That's insane," she said finally. "Maybe it's a prank?" Clara shook her head. "I don't think so." They sat in silence, the rising sun painting the sky in pastel hues. Clara's mind raced. Should she call the police? Hire a priest? Burn the doll? She didn't know what to do. Lisa placed a comforting hand on her arm. "Let's go back. Let's get that doll and get rid of it." Clara nodded, steeling herself. "I'm going to end this tonight." That evening, they returned to the Harper estate. The air was crisp, the gravel crunching underfoot. Clara's stomach churned as they entered the foyer. She led Lisa to the study door. Clara reached for the knob. "Ready?" Lisa squeezed her hand. "Ray!" Together, they opened the door. The desk was empty. Clara's heart stopped. She scanned the room. The lamp lay on its side, shattered. The shattered glass glittered like stars on the carpet. No doll. No crate. "Where is she?" Clara whispered. A soft giggle drifted from the shadows. Clara and Lisa spun toward the sound. There, Perched on the windowsill, the doll sat, bathed in the moonlight. Her eyes were fixed on Clara, her smile wider than before. Clara swallowed hard. She took a step forward. The doll's head tilted. "I told you I would bring you home." Clara felt a wave of vertigo. The room seemed to stretch, the walls breathing. Lisa grabbed Clara's arm, pulling her back. Clara's vision blurred as she realized the doll's voice was now not in her mind, but all around her, filling the study with 1,000 tiny whispers. Home, home, home. Clara's world went black. Clara awoke on the floor, her head throbbing. Lisa knelt beside her, shaking her gently. "Clara, wake up!" Clara blinked, the study ceiling above her. The doll was gone. The crate lay overturned in the corner, its lid open like a tomb. "We need to leave," Clara whispered, voice trembling. "Now." Lisa helped her up, and they fled the room. As they passed the foyer mirror, Clara caught a glimpse of herself, pale, eyes wide, clutching the parchment in her hand. On the floor beside her, a single porcelain shoe glinted. Clara didn't look back. Outside, the night was still, the moon high and silent. Clara and Lisa got into the car. Clara started the engine, hands shaking so badly she could barely see the road. As they drove away, Clara's phone buzzed one last time. "Welcome home, Clara." And somewhere in the back seat, Clara felt the weight of the doll's presence. First Night Whispers. Clara Harper lay awake long after midnight, the ceiling beams of her grandmother's old house tracing dark patterns against the pale moonlight. She had returned the previous evening, her friend Lisa's encouragement still echoing in her mind. "We'll get rid of that thing." Yet the doll's last words, "Welcome home, Clara," haunted her, as if the house itself had whispered them in her ear. The clock beside her bed ticked steadily, 2:03 a.m. Clara shifted, the thin quilt failing to warm her. She closed her eyes, willing sleep to come, but the silence pressed in, heavy as lead. Then she heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible rustle, like silk brushing against wood. Her eyes snapped open. The moonlight slanted through the window, illuminating the foot of her bed where the doll sat, perched on the small ottoman she had left there for safekeeping. Clara's heart seized in her chest. She had hidden the doll in the study crate, convinced she could burn it safely. Yet somehow it had found its way back to her bedroom. She stared, breath shallow. The doll's porcelain face was serene, her glass eyes gleaming with reflected light. Clara reached out. Half dreaming, she could shove the doll off the ottoman, end this nightmare, but her hand hovered, paralyzed by fear. Then the whisper came, a soft, childlike voice that curled around her eardrums. "Clara." Her pulse pounded. She forced herself to lean forward. "Who's there?" she whispered, voice cracking. Silence. Then again, "Clara." Clara's breath hitched. She sat up, wrapping the quilt around her shoulders. The doll's head tilted ever so slightly, as though acknowledging her. "What do you want?" Clara demanded. No answer, only the low hum of the old radiator. Clara forced her legs over the side of the bed, the wood floor cold against her feet. She moved toward the ottoman, each step echoing in the quiet room. She reached the doll and, with trembling fingers, grasped its arm. Suddenly, the whisper blossomed into 100 tiny voices swirling around her mind. Find me, find me, find me. Clara staggered back, clutching her head. The voices faded as quickly as they had come, leaving her breathless. She looked at the doll, horror blooming in her chest. "Find you?" she muttered. "What do you mean?" No answer. The doll sat silent, as if sleeping. Clara exhaled, steadying herself. She had to get away, to clear her head. She grabbed her phone, scrolling through her contacts for Lisa's number. Her thumb hovered over the call button. She wanted to tell Lisa everything, to demand they leave for good. But what if Lisa thought she was insane? What if this was only in her mind? She dropped the phone onto the bed and sank onto the floor, back against the wall. The quilt pooled around her. Clara closed her eyes, willing her heart to slow. In the oppressive silence, she heard the soft click of her bedroom door. She looked up. Lisa stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light, face pale. "You okay?" Lisa whispered. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "She's here," she said, voice barely audible. Lisa stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Who?" Clara pointed at the ottoman. "The doll, she's—" But when Clara turned her head, the ottoman was empty. Lisa knelt beside Clara, concern etched on her face. "Maybe we should call someone, police, a priest, anyone who can help." She reached for Clara's hand. Clara shook her head. "No, it'll make it worse. She wants me to find her." She looked up, eyes haunted. "But I don't know what she's talking about." Lisa pulled Clara to her feet. "Come on, let's get some air." She led her from the bedroom into the long hallway. The wallpaper's floral pattern seemed to pulse in the dim light. Clara stumbled down the stairs, and they emerged into the kitchen. The kitchen clock ticked 2:27 a.m. The air smelled of stale lavender and cold steel. Clara opened the back door and stepped onto the porch. The night was still, the moon casting a silver sheen over the lawn. Lisa followed, wrapping her arms around herself. "You're sure you saw it?" Clara nodded. "It was right there, but then gone." They stood in silence, listening to the creak of an old branch brushing against the roof. "Okay," Lisa said finally. "Let's try to be rational. There has to be an explanation." She pulled a small flashlight from her pocket. "Maybe the wind knocked it over and it rolled into the corner. We can search the whole house." Clara wiped her eyes. "All right, let's go." She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "But if we find it, we burn it. No second chances." Lisa nodded. "Agreed." They returned inside and began their search. Clara led the way, flashlight beams sweeping over the antique furniture, along dusty shelves, and beneath the heavy curtains. Every creak of the floorboards set her nerves alight. In the study, they found the overturned crate, its lid flung open. The smell of charred wood lingered. "But no doll." "She's playing with us," Clara muttered. "Maybe she's hiding somewhere else," Lisa said. She shone the light toward the fireplace. "Check the hearth." Clara knelt, peering into the dark recess. Only ash and old logs remained. They moved from room to room, the parlor, the dining room, the library. Nothing. Clara's frustration built into a knot in her stomach. In the attic, Dust motes danced in the flashlight beam. Boxes lined the walls, filled with old linens and forgotten keepsakes. Clara's breath caught when she spotted the doll's faded blue dress among a pile of blankets. She stepped forward, flashlight trembling in her hand. "Lisa, over here!" Lisa climbed the narrow stairs, eyes whitening at the sight. "How did it get up here?" Clara didn't answer. She pulled aside the blankets to reveal the doll, lying on her back, arms splayed as though abandoned. Clara knelt and picked her up. The porcelain skin was cold, even colder than before. The doll's glass eyes stared sightlessly at the attic ceiling. Clara felt a surge of resolve. This ends tonight. She opened her jacket and placed the doll inside, wrapping her tightly. Lisa watched, apprehension on her face. "Where are you taking her?" Clara met her gaze. "To the clearing behind the house. There's an old fire pit. We'll burn her." She climbed down the stairs, the doll's weight heavy against her chest. The clearing lay beyond the overgrown hedges, a circle of scorched earth where the previous owners had once gathered. The fire pit sat at its center, stones blackened by countless flames. Clara knelt and arranged kindling inside the pit. Lisa handed her matches. Clara struck one, the flame dancing on her fingertip before she brought it to the wood. The fire caught quickly. Clara held the doll above the flames, hesitating for a moment as the porcelain glinted in the orange glow. The doll's ribbon fluttered, as though alive. "Do it, Clara," Lisa urged. Clara nodded, tears in her eyes. She lowered the doll into the fire. The porcelain cracked with a sharp report. And the dress ignited in a burst of heat. Clara stepped back, shielding her face. The doll's head separated from her body, tumbling into the flames. Clara watched as the porcelain melted, the glass eyes bubbling and warping. The smell of burning fabric and resin filled the air. Yet as the fire died down, Clara realized the doll's head was nowhere to be seen, only shards of porcelain scattered among the ashes. She exhaled, relief and exhaustion washing over her. "It's over." Lisa put a hand on her shoulder. "Let's go back inside." They returned to the house, the fire pit smoldering behind them. The sky above was beginning to lighten, stars fading into dawn. Clara climbed the stairs to her bedroom, expecting silence. Instead, she heard it, a faint whisper, like a breeze through dead leaves. "Clara!" Her blood ran cold. She froze in the hallway, flashlight dropped at her feet. "I'm still here." Clara's heart thundered. She raced to her bedroom and flicked on the light. The room was empty. The ottoman sat by the bed, its surface pristine. Clara's breath caught when she saw it. A single porcelain eye, glossy and whole, resting on the ottoman. "First night whispers," she murmured, voice shaking. The eye rolled slowly toward her, then settled, as if watching. Clara staggered back, her mind a whirl of terror and disbelief. She fell to her knees, clutching the fragmented eye. "Find me!" The whisper rose again, urgent, pleading. Tears blurred her vision. "I don't know how," she sobbed. The eye rolled once more, pointing toward the window. Clara's breath caught. She followed its gaze to the windowsill. There, in the pale light, sat the doll's other half, body intact but headless. The dress was clean, the lace untouched by flame. "Listen." The whisper hissed through the room. Clara pressed her hands to her ears, shaking her head. No more whispers! No more! But the voices multiplied, filling the space around her. Find me. Bring me home. Finish the story. First night whispers. Clara closed her eyes, sobbing into her knees. The whispers continued, a chorus of the damned. When she opened her eyes again, the room was silent. The porcelain eye lay at her feet, its glass surface dull. On the windowsill, the doll's head had returned, resting on the sill like a sentinel. Clara stood, resolve hardening in her chest. She gathered the head and the eye, cradling them in her arms. I will find you, she whispered into the dawn. I will finish this. Moving shadows. The storm came without warning. Clara Harper woke to the rumble of thunder, shaking the old Victorian walls, the rain lashing against her window in frantic sheets. She sat up, heart still racing from the nightmares that had haunted her since the doll's arrival. The parchment's cryptic message, in darkness she remembers, in silence she listens, echoed in her mind. She glanced at the bedside clock. 3:17 a.m. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the room in stark white light. Clara swung her legs over the side of the bed and wrapped the quilt around her. She could not stay in her bedroom any longer. The whispers had driven her from its confines. With slow, deliberate steps, she made her way down the hallway. Lisa's door was ajar. Clara paused, listening. No sound came from within. She pushed the door open and found Lisa curled under a blanket, her breathing steady. Clara exhaled in relief and touched her friend's shoulder. Lisa, wake up. Clara's voice trembled. Lisa's eyes fluttered open. What is it? She mumbled, disoriented. Clara shook her head. The shadows, they're moving. She gestured to the window where the storm outside roared. Lisa rubbed her eyes. Moving shadows? Clara nodded, voice low. Ever since we burned the doll's body, shadows have been shifting in the corners of the house. I thought it was the storm, but I don't know. Lisa sat up, swinging her legs over the bed. Show me. Together, they crept into the hallway. Clara pointed toward the far end, where the wallpaper's floral pattern was merely obscured by darkness. A fold in the fabric seemed to ripple as if alive. Lisa squinted. I see a flicker. She shone her phone's flashlight along the wall. The beam passed over a section of wallpaper that seemed to shudder under the light. Clara swallowed. Not just the wallpaper, the shadows themselves. A fresh bolt of lightning cast jagged shapes across the hallway. In the split-second glare, Clara thought she saw a tall, slender figure standing at the end of the corridor, pale, featureless, its head tilted. She blinked, and the figure was gone. They descended the stairs to the study, hoping to find some clue in the crate or the parchment. But the room was empty, and the crate had vanished once more. The desk drawer where Clara had stashed the parchment lay open and bare. Clara's stomach nodded. She's everywhere, she whispered. Lisa placed a hand on her arm. Let's calm down. We need a plan. She pointed to the fireplace. The hearth. Maybe we can find something there. Ashes, shards, anything. Clara nodded, forcing herself to breathe steadily. They swept aside the soot and embers, revealing broken porcelain fragments. But these were no ordinary shards. Each piece was etched with tiny, indecipherable runes that glowed faintly in the firelight. Clara knelt and picked up a shard. The moment her skin brushed the glowing symbols, a jolt shot through her arm and she gasped. "Look closer." The words formed in her mind, crisp as a whispered command. Clara looked at Lisa, fear and wonder mingling in her eyes. "They're speaking to me," she murmured. Lisa peered over her shoulder. "What do they say?" Clara's fingers trembled over the shard. I don't know. It's like memories, flashes of something, a child's laughter, a lullaby." Lightning struck again, and the room was bathed in white light. Shadows leaped and twisted around them, pooling in corners, crawling along the walls. "We need to leave," Lisa hissed. Clara stood, pressing the shard into her pocket. "No, we need answers." She headed toward the bookshelf, pulling volumes of local history and folklore from the shelves. They pored over dusty tomes by the light of a single lamp. Clara's fingers traced lines about the Harper family's history, tales of a distant ancestor, Annalise Harper, rumored to have dabbled in dark rituals to preserve her child's spirit. Legend said Annalise's daughter, Eliza, died in a fire. Her body never recovered. The townsfolk whispered that Annalise had bound Eliza's soul to a doll, hoping to keep her alive. Clara's breath caught. She pointed to a grainy portrait, a young girl with raven curls and pale skin, dressed in a blue frock almost identical to the doll's. Lisa's eyes widened. "So the doll is Eliza?" Clara closed the book. "And she's trapped. The whispers, the moving shadows, they're her attempts to reach out." They sat in silence, the thunder rumbling overhead. Lisa broke the quiet. "If we free her, maybe she'll stop." Clara nodded. "But how?" Her gaze fell on the parchment in her jacket pocket. She withdrew it, the edges singed. She unfolded it, reading again. "In darkness, she remembers. In silence, she listens. Tonight, you will see what I have seen. Tonight," Clara's voice was a whisper, "we need to go to the attic. That's where Annalise practiced her rituals." Lisa swallowed. "The attic? That place gives me the creeps." Clara squared her shoulders. "It's the only place left." She pocketed the parchment and gestured to the stairs. "Let's go." The attic door protested as they pushed it open. A rush of stale air greeted them, carrying the scent of mildew and old wood. Their flashlight beams danced across crates and trunks, draped sheets and cobweb-laced rafters. Clara's heart thumped in her chest. "Stay close." She stepped onto the creaking floorboards. They made their way to the far corner where a small altar had been constructed from an old table. Candlestick holders, tarnished silver bowls, and blackened candles lay scattered across its surface. Dried rose petals and bone fragments littered the table. Clara knelt and brushed her fingertips over the table's edge. A loose floorboard caught her attention. It rattled when she pressed it. She pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. "This must be Annalise's diary," Clara whispered. She opened it, the pages brittle. The inked entry spoke of grief, desperation, and forbidden rites to tether Eliza's spirit to a vessel of porcelain. The final entry chilled Clara's blood. She calls in the shadows. She is restless. Tonight, I will bind her to the light so she may rest. Clara's pulse raced. She tried to free her daughter, but she failed. Lisa pointed to a folded piece of vellum tucked between pages. Clara unfolded it. A hand-drawn ritual circle, runes matching those on the porcelain shards, and instructions for releasing a bound spirit. Clara's hands shook as she studied the drawing. We need these ingredients: lavender, bone ash, a drop of blood, and the doll's heart, her original porcelain core. Lisa's face went pale. The doll's heart? Where is that? Clara reached into her pocket and produced the glowing shard. It's one of these fragments. We have to find the rest. She shone her flashlight around the attic. Help me search. They moved swiftly, pulling aside crates and boxes, gathering shards of porcelain etched with the same runes. Each piece glowed softly when touched, pulsing with an inner light. A sudden gust of wind swept through the attic, extinguishing their flashlight and candles. Darkness swallowed them. Lisa? Clara called, voice trembling. A low whisper curled around them. Find me. Clara fumbled for her phone's light. When she flicked it on, Lisa was gone. Panic seized Clara's heart. Lisa! She screamed, her voice cracking. She stumbled through the darkness, shards clutched to her chest. The whisper followed her. Find me, find me. The sound seemed to come from all directions. Clara's phone light caught a glimpse of movement, a slender shadow slipping behind a trunk. She ran toward it, breath ragged, and yanked the trunk aside. Lisa lay on the floor, unconscious, porcelain shards scattered around her. Lisa! Clara dropped to her knees, shaking her friend's shoulder. Lisa's eyelids fluttered, and she groaned. Clara cradled Lisa's head. Are you okay? Lisa's eyes cleared. What happened? Clara pointed to the shards. We need to finish the ritual. By the dim light of Clara's phone, they assembled the ritual circle on the attic floor, placing the shards at each cardinal point. Clara sprinkled lavender petals and bone ash within the circle. Lisa held a small vial of Clara's blood, trembling as she pricked her finger. Clara opened the parchment with the instructions. Her voice shook as she recited the incantation. By light of moon and flame of earth, return the child to rightful birth. Release her soul from vessel torn. Let shadows fade with coming dawn. A gust of wind rattled the attic. The shards glowed brighter, pulsing in unison. Clara poured her blood into the center of the circle. The lavender and ash mixed with the crimson drop, steaming like incense. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it became a wail, a child's cry, desperate and echoing. The shards spun, hovering above the floor, forming a circle of glowing runes. The air grew cold. Clara's breath fogged before her. From the center of the circle, a pale figure emerged, a little girl in a blue frock, hair in raven curls. Her eyes were empty voids, her expression sorrowful. Clara swallowed. Eliza, I'm sorry. The girl's form flickered. The wail rose, then abruptly ceased. The shards fell to the floor with a clatter, the runes extinguishing their glow. Silence settled. The figure knelt before Clara, placing a small porcelain heart in her palm. It was perfect, whole, unblemished. Eliza's lips moved, but no sound came. Then the girl smiled, a real, childlike smile, and faded into mist. Clara stared at the heart in her hand, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Lisa. "We did it." Lisa nodded, voice thick. "She's free." Clara rose, clutching the porcelain heart. The attic felt warmer, the shadows receding into the corners. She looked once more at the altar, now empty of its sinister relics. Downstairs, thunder rumbled one last time before the storm passed. Dawn's light crept through the attic window, washing the room in gentle gold. Clara exhaled, hope and relief mingling in her chest. She held the heart to her lips and whispered, "Rest now, Eliza." Outside, the house seemed to sigh. The weight of darkness lifted, if only for a moment. The scratched letter. Clara Harper awoke to a stillness that felt heavy, as though the house itself were holding its breath. The dawn light filtered through the lace curtains in her bedroom, illuminating motes of dust that drifted in the air. She rose from the bed, porcelain heart clutched in her hand, and crossed to the window. Outside, the garden lay sodden from last night's storm, petals of black-eyed Susans drooping under the weight of rain. Her mind drifted back to the attic ritual, the shards, the runes, the mournful wail of Eliza's spirit. And yet, even in her triumph, a nagging unease lingered. Something remained unfinished. Clara tucked the heart into a small wooden box on her bedside table, then dressed quickly. She found Lisa already in the kitchen, brewing coffee and frowning at a pile of damp lobs on the floor. "Morning," Clara said softly. Lisa looked up, dark circles under her eyes. "I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that letter you scratched out on the parchment last night, but I don't know why it bothered me so much." Clara frowned. "Letter? I thought we burned everything in the attic." Lisa handed her a mug of coffee. "No, not the parchment. I mean the note I found scratched into the wooden floorboards in the attic. Few letters, half-formed, as if someone had tried to write with their fingernails." Clara's blood ran cold. "Where is it now?" Lisa pointed to a folded piece of paper on the kitchen table, its edges torn. "I pried it free with a butter knife. It looked fresh." Clara swallowed. She sat at the table and unfolded the paper, revealing a single line scratched deep into the fiber. "Eliza will not rest." Beneath it, in smaller, shakier letters, "Find her bones." Clara's hand trembled around the mug. "Bones?" she whispered. Lisa nodded. "It's like a warning. But why would someone write it now? And who?" Clara set the paper down. "Annalise. It must be her. She left one last message for Eliza to help her find peace." They decided to return to the attic at first light. Clara and Lisa gathered tools, a flashlight, a small hammer, and a crowbar. The wooden stairs groaned beneath their weight as they ascended. At the far corner, where the ritual altar once stood, the floorboards bore new scratches, faint but unmistakable. Clara knelt and shone her light on the wood. The letters were carved into the grain, bones hidden beneath. "She wants us to dig," Clara said, voice hushed. Lisa swallowed. "Beneath what?" Clara traced the letters with her fingertip. "The hearth? The cellar?" She stood and examined the attic floor plan in her mind. "There's a trap door here, hidden under that old rug." She knelt again, tugged at a moth-eaten carpet, and revealed a square panel in the floor. "Here," she whispered. "Help me lift it." Together they pried the panel free. A narrow ladder descended into darkness. Clara's heart pounded as she shone her flashlight down the shaft. A damp, earthy scent rose. She descended first, Lisa following close behind. The ladder ended in a small stone chamber, an old root cellar, its walls lined with crumbling mortar. The beam of the flashlight danced across broken jars and discarded tools. In the center of the floor lay a patch of disturbed earth, soft and freshly turned. Lisa knelt beside it. "Someone's been digging here." Clara dropped to her knees and brushed away soil with her gloved hands. Her fingers struck something hard. She cleared more dirt, revealing a fragment of bone, long and slender, etched with age. "Eliza's bones," Clara breathed. She unearthed a small pile, a rib fragment, part of a skull's edge, and a single vertebra. Each piece lay breached by time. Lisa reached out, her face pale. "We should rebury her, or burn them." Clara shook her head. "No, Annalise wanted them found. She thought binding Eliza's spirit to the doll would give her rest, but she never laid the body to rest properly. We need to do that now." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the porcelain heart. "This goes back with her remains." They fashioned a makeshift box from wooden slats and placed the bones inside, wrapping them carefully in linen scraps from the attic. Clara laid the porcelain heart atop the bundle. Lisa hesitated. "What now?" Clara's eyes were determined. "We bury her in the garden, beneath the old oak. It was Eliza's favorite spot, according to the diary." She paused. "And we leave her in peace." They climbed back to the surface, carrying the bundle between them. The morning air was crisp, and the sun peeked through drifting clouds. The garden was silent, the riot of blooms still dripping with dew. Beneath the sprawling limbs of the oak tree, Clara dug a shallow grave. Each spade of earth felt like penance, unearthing centuries of sorrow. At last, she placed the bundle inside, the porcelain heart visible on top. Clara knelt, head bowed. Eliza Harper, daughter of Annalise Harper, rest at last. She covered the remains with soil, pressing the earth gently. Lisa scattered rose petals from a nearby bush atop the mound. A breeze stirred, rustling the oak's leaves. For a moment, Clara thought she heard a faint giggle, a child's laughter carried on the wind. Lisa touched her arm. "Do you think she's gone?" Clara exhaled slowly. "I hope so." They returned to the house, weary but relieved. Inside, Clara found the small wooden box where she had stored the porcelain heart. Now empty, the attic, once a place of dread, felt calm. Yet as Clara reached for a glass of water, she noticed something on the kitchen counter. The torn piece of paper now blank. She frowned. "Lisa!" Lisa looked up from her phone. Yes? Clara held the paper. The letter, it's gone. Erased. Lisa crossed the room. Maybe the message was only meant for us to read once. Clara nodded, but a cold shiver ran down her spine. She smoothed the paper flat. Beneath the breakfast plate, she spotted another scrap, a tiny sliver of porcelain, painted with a single blue rose. Clara picked it up, examining the delicate pattern. It was unmistakably from the doll's frock, charred by fire. "Lisa," she whispered. Lisa came over and peered at the fragment. It can't be. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, casting long shadows. Clara placed a sliver on the table. The edges began to blow, faint and tremulous as if alive. Clara backed away. She's not finished with us. That night, Clara lay in bed, eyes wide. The house was silent, too silent. She glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. She rose and crept to the hallway. The floorboards beneath her feet were bare. No scratches, no messages. She moved to the study, but the desk was empty, the crate long gone. She climbed the stairs to the attic door and hesitated. No, she refused to go back. Then she heard it, a soft scratching like fingernails dragging across paper. She froze, listening. The sound came from the garden, drifting through the open window. Clara rushed outside. The moon was a pale orb in the sky. In the garden, the freshly buried mound beneath the oak had been disturbed. The soil was overturned, the rose petals scattered. Clara knelt and brushed away earth. There, half buried, lay a piece of parchment, scratched and torn. She retrieved it and backed away. Under the moonlight, she unfolded the paper. The letters were etched in trembling lines. "I am here." Clara's blood ran cold. The final message glowed faintly before her eyes. And somewhere in the shadows beyond the oak, a soft giggle echoed. She wasn't alone. Eyes in the dark. Clara Harper's dreams were fractured that night, populated by silent figures and half-seen faces. When she finally awoke, the sky was a bruised gray, and the wind whispered through the eaves like a restless spirit. She lay still for a moment, listening. The house was too quiet, as though holding its breath. Her gaze drifted to the small wooden box on her bedside table, empty, as it had been since she buried Eliza's remains. Clara sat up and ran her fingers along its surface. The wood was cold, the porcelain heart long gone. A soft click sounded behind her. Clara spun, heart pounding. In the doorway stood Lisa, pale and wide-eyed, holding a phone that glowed with a single image, a photograph taken in the study the night before. "Look!" Lisa said, voice trembling. "I found this when I went to check the security camera." Clara crossed the room and took the phone. The photo showed the study's desk, empty except for scattered papers. But in the corner of the frame, by the window, 2 pinpoints of light gleamed like eyes. Clara's breath caught. "Eyes in the dark," she whispered. They reviewed the footage. The camera, mounted above the door, had recorded the study from 11:30 p.m. to midnight. Clara watched as she and Lisa walked past, carrying the bundle of bones. The door closed behind them with a thud. At 11:47 p.m., the door creaked open again. No one entered. The camera's night vision cast the room in greenish hues. For a long moment, the desk sat empty. Then, at 11:52 p.m., two tiny lights appeared in the darkness. First one, then the other. They hovered at shoulder height, fixed on the desk. The lights pulsed once, then vanished. "What is that?" Lisa whispered. Clara swallowed. "I don't know, but Eliza's spirit, maybe she's still here, watching us." She scrolled forward. At 11:59 p.m., the crate from the study door reappeared, moved from the foyer, and slid across the floor to the desk. No hands guided it. It moved as though pushed by invisible fingers. Lisa's hand covered her mouth. "We need to destroy that crate." Clara nodded. "Tonight, we end this for good." She closed her laptop and set to work. They gathered supplies: a crowbar, rope, and a can of kerosene from the shed. As dusk fell, they made a plan. By 9 p.m., the sky was a deep indigo. The air held a damp chill. Clara and Lisa crept through the house to the foyer. The crate sat beneath the grand staircase, its wood scarred and blackened from previous attempts. Clara placed the crowbar under the lid. On 3, she looked at Lisa. 1, 2, 3. They pried the lid free. Inside lay nothing but dust and a single porcelain eye, unbroken. Clara's blood ran cold. She backed away. "This is impossible," Lisa said, voice shaking. Clara's jaw tightened. "It's the last piece. The heart, the shards, and now this eye, Eliza's final anchor to this world." She grabbed the eye and held it aloft. "We burn it all," Lisa said. Clara nodded. "Down to the clearing." They carried the crate, the eye, and the kerosene can through the storm-whipped garden to the old fire pit beneath the oak. Lightning flashed, illuminating their pale faces. Clara doused the eye and crate with kerosene. The smell of fuel mixed with wet earth. Lisa stepped back, lighter in hand. Clara hesitated, eyes on the crate. "Are you ready?" Lisa nodded. "Ready." She struck the lighter. The flame flickered, then roared as Lisa brought it to the kerosene. The crate burst into flames, the porcelain eye rolling free and landing in the pit. Clara leaned forward, watching the fire consume the wood. The flames reflected in the eye's glossy surface until the porcelain cracked and crumbled. The crate's sides collapsed inward, black smoke curling skyward. Suddenly, the wind died. The world held its breath. Clara and Lisa exchanged glances. Then, a soft, clear voice rose from the darkness. "Thank you." They froze. The voice was a child's, gentle and sorrowful. Clara's heart hammered. "Eliza?" she whispered. "I can rest now," the voice said. The flames flickered, revealing nothing but ashes and embers. Lisa closed her eyes. "Goodbye, Eliza." The fire pit crackled, then settled into glowing coals. The night was silent. Clara reached into her pocket. The small box she had carried the porcelain heart in was warm. She opened it empty. She closed it, tucking it away. "She's gone," she said softly. They returned to the house. The storm had passed. The moon shone full and bright. The front doors swung on silent hinges as they entered. Inside, the house felt different, lighter, as though a weight had been lifted. Clara made her way to the study. The desk was bare, the floor clean. No shadows lurked in the corners. Lisa followed, flipping on the light. "Do you think it's really over?" Clara ran her hand along the desktop. "I hope so, but some things leave a mark." She gestured to the wall, where a faint outline of the crate's shape remained, etched into the plaster. Lisa shivered. "We should repaint." Clara laughed softly. "Yes, and maybe invest in a security system that doesn't show glowing eyes in the dark." She closed the study door. As they walked down the hallway, Clara paused before the attic door. She placed her hand on the knob, but hesitated. "Go on," Lisa said. Clara shook her head. "Some doors are better left closed." She turned away. In her bedroom, she slid into bed. The wooden box sat on the nightstand, its surface warm to the touch. Clara closed her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she felt the tension slip from her shoulders. In the stillness, she thought she heard a soft giggle, like a child at play. She smiled, then drifted into a dreamless sleep. But in the darkness beyond her window, 2 pinpoints of light shimmered once, then winked out. Midnight visitor. The silence that settled over the Harper estate was profound, as though the house had swallowed every sound. Clara Harper lay awake in her bed, eyes tracing the moonlit patterns dancing across her ceiling. It was well past midnight, and sleep felt impossibly distant. Since the fire pit ritual, the oppressive weight that had clung to her days had lifted, yet an undercurrent of unease persisted. She felt watched. A sudden knock at the front door shattered the stillness. Clara's breath caught. Visitors at this hour were unheard of. She slipped from the bed, the floorboards cold beneath her feet, and crossed the room to Lisa's door. "Lisa?" she whispered, gently shaking her friend's shoulder. Lisa stirred, eyes blinking awake. "What is it?" Clara held up a finger. "Someone's at the door." She crept toward the hallway, heart pounding. Together, they tiptoed down the stairs. At the bottom, Clara paused, listening. The knock came again, firm, deliberate. Clara peered through the stained glass window beside the door. A man stood on the porch, his coat buttoned high against the night air, hat brim low. His face was shadowed, but when he raised his head, Clara saw a pale, angular cheek and eyes that glinted unnaturally in the lantern light. She swallowed. Who could that be? Clara opened the door a crack. "Can I help you?" The man tilted his hat back, revealing dark hair streaked with silver. "Miss Harper, I presume?" "My name is Jonathan Hale. I apologize for the hour, but I come on urgent business regarding your grandmother's estate." Clara frowned. "My grandmother passed years ago. I inherited the house months back." Hale's gaze flicked to the parlor window, where moonlight pooled on the floor. "Yes, of course. I've been researching the Harper lineage. I believe there are matters that require your attention, particularly concerning the child, Eliza." Clara's pulse quickened. "How do you know about Eliza?" Hale smiled, but it was more a grimace. "I have records, diaries, letters documenting the Harper family's unique history. May I come in?" Clara hesitated, then stepped aside. Lisa followed, crossing her arms. "What do you want?" They seated themselves in the parlor. Hale produced a leather satchel and set it on the coffee table. "I'm an archivist with the New England Historical Society. Your grandmother's papers came into our possession last year. Among them was a sealed envelope addressed to you. marked, "To be opened only when the child is at rest." Clara exchanged a glance with Lisa. "I never received such an envelope." Hale reached into the satchel and withdrew a folded piece of parchment, edges yellowed. He handed it to Clara. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The parchment bore a single sentence in delicate script. "The spirit of Eliza Harper is bound by blood and bone. To free her, one must undo the final seal." Clara's throat went dry. "The final seal?" Hale nodded. "Your ritual freed her in part. But the binding was threefold: heart, bones, and bloodline. You returned the heart and bones. The final seal lies in the lineage your blood." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying Clara herself is the seal?" Hale's gaze met Clara's. "Yes. A drop of your blood was used in the ritual, unknowingly. You are the conduit. Unless the seal is fully undone, Eliza's spirit will remain tethered to this house and you." He paused. "She will come to claim you at midnight, when the veil is thinnest." A cold wind rattled the windows. Clara pressed the parchment to her chest. "What must I do?" Hale produced a small vial filled with dark red liquid blood. Clara realized with a shock. "This is a sample of your grandmother's blood, taken from her letters sealed with wax. It holds the key. You must combine your blood with hers in the original ritual circle and speak the final words to break the bond entirely." Lisa shook her head. "This is madness." Clara stared at the vial. Her grandmother's blood, sacred and profane. "If I don't," she trailed off, fear tightening her chest. Hale's expression was grave. "If you don't, Eliza will not rest, and she will seek to reclaim what is hers." Clara and Lisa prepared. Hale guided them through the instructions. In the study, they cleared the furniture and drew the ritual circle anew, etching runes with chalk on the wooden floor. Clara cut her palm with a ceremonial dagger, letting drops of blood fall onto the circle's center. Hale added a few drops from the vial. "Speak the words," Hale instructed, voice low. Clara closed her eyes, recalling the incantation from Annalise's journal. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "By blood of line and blood of kin, the bond undone, let life begin. Spirit bound no more to earth, release her soul, give her rebirth." The runes glowed faintly, then blazed with an inner light. The air around them grew cold, and a soft sobbing filled the room. Clara opened her eyes. Before her stood Eliza's ghostly form, transparent and trembling. Her glassy eyes met Clara's. "Thank you," Eliza whispered, voice echoing like wind through a hollow tree. The circle's light pulsed, then shattered in a silent burst. The chalk lines crumbled, and the runes faded. Eliza's form wavered, then dissolved into motes of silver light that drifted upward and vanished. The study fell silent. Clara sank to her knees, the empty vial clattering to the floor. Lisa knelt beside her, tears in her eyes. Hale closed his satchel. "It is done." Clara looked up at him. "Will she never return?" Hale paused, then smiled gently. "The binding is broken. She is free." He rose, tipping his hat. "I will leave you now, Miss Harper, but I advise you to seal this house, remove any trace of Annalise's writings and the doll's remnants. The past should stay buried." As he turned to go, Clara noticed a folded envelope in his hand, addressed to her in the same delicate script. Hale paused on the threshold. "One final thing," he said. "Your grandmother wanted you to have this." Clara took the envelope, hands still shaking. "Thank you." Hale disappeared into the night, footsteps echoing down the gravel drive. Inside, Clara broke the seal. The letter within read, "My dearest Clara, if you are reading this, then you have faced the darkness that haunted our bloodline. Know that my love has always been with you. The doll was never merely a vessel. It was a promise to a mother. You have honored that promise. Remember, no shadow lasts forever. May your nights be peaceful, and may you never forget the strength you carry within. With all my love, Grandmother Harper." Clara folded the letter, tears blurring the ink. She looked at Lisa, who offered a gentle smile. "Midnight visitor," Lisa whispered. Clara nodded, and final farewell. She placed the letter in the wooden box, sealing it. The house was still, the night air warm through the open window. For the first time in months, Clara felt a quiet peace settle in her bones. The midnight visitor had come and gone, leaving behind the promise of rest. But as she climbed the stairs to her bedroom, she couldn't shake the feeling that some stories never truly end. Secrets in the attic. Sunlight filtered through the small attic window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the stale air. Clara Harper hesitated at the foot of the ladder, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Since Jonathan Hale's departure and Eliza's release, the house felt lighter, as though a burden had been lifted. Yet the attic, source of so much horror and revelation, remained a place of unanswered questions. Clara steadied herself and climbed the ladder, Lisa close behind. The attic door creaked as Clara pushed it open. They stepped into the familiar chaos of crates and cobwebs. But today, the room seemed different. The altar was gone, the ritual circle erased, and the scattered remnants of Annalise's belongings either removed or hidden beneath a fresh layer of dust. Clara exhaled. Someone's been here. She swept a hand across a trunk's lid. Hale, or perhaps someone else from the Historical Society. Lisa shone her flashlight across the rafters. He told us to remove any trace. Maybe he returned to clear this place. She paused. But what about the attic's secret corner? Clara's eyes narrowed. She moved toward the far wall where the wallpaper had once peeled to reveal a concealed door. For weeks, the door had vanished beneath a fresh coat of paint and new boards. She tapped the wall. Beneath the surface, the hollow sound betrayed a hidden space. Clara knelt and pried loose a nail with her pocket knife. A section of board swung inward, revealing a narrow crawl space. A stale draft emerged, carrying the faint scent of old parchment. "Let's see what's inside," Clara said. They squeezed through the opening into a cramped passageway, dust coating their clothes. Clara held the flashlight high, its beam bouncing off rough-hewn beams. The crawl space led deeper into the house's attic structure, ending at a second hidden door, this one smaller, reinforced with iron hinges. Clara examined the latch. Stuck tight. Lisa found a small pry bar in Clara's toolkit. Together they forced the latch open. The door swung inward, revealing a secret chamber no larger than a closet. Inside, a single wooden shelf held a leather-bound journal, a tarnished silver locket, and a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. Clara lifted the journal. Its cover bore a name etched in elegant script, Annalise Harper. Her breath caught as she opened it. The pages were filled with neat handwriting, each entry dated between 1885 and 1887. "Look at this," Clara whispered, turning to Lisa. "This is her personal diary, never meant for prying eyes." Lisa nodded, eyes wide. "Let's read it." She carefully untied the ribbon on the letters and set them aside. They settled on the attic floor, the journal open between them. Clara read aloud the first entry. October 3rd, 1885. "The house grows colder each night, and I fear my prayers have failed. Eliza's laughter echoes through these rafters, but her body is gone. I cannot rest until I know where she lies." Clara's throat tightened. She searched for her daughter, even after binding her spirit to the doll. Lisa turned a page. December 12th, 1886. "I have found a hidden root cellar beneath the floorboards. I fear what I must do, but a mother's love compels me. I will unearth her remains and bury her beneath the old oak where she once played." Clara's pulse quickened. "That matches what we did, but how did she know?" Lisa picked up the locket. She opened it, revealing 2 miniature portraits, one of Annalise and one of a little girl with raven curls, Eliza. "The locket was always with her," Lisa said. "Perhaps it held power, too." Clara found the next entry. January 1st, 1887. "The ritual failed. My tears have turned to blood upon the altar. The doll's eyes follow me. I fear she will never rest." I have hidden my final confession here, hoping that one day another Harper might find it and finish what I could not. Clara closed the journal gently. Her confession, these letters. She untied the ribbon and spread the letters before them. The top letter began, "My dearest love, if you read this, then my heart has failed, and I could not free Eliza. Know that I tried every prayer, every ritual known to our ancestors, but I fear that the binding has cursed us all." A second letter spoke of a secret rite. "I discovered a passage beneath the attic floorboards leading to an ancient family vault. There I found the original vessel in which our ancestors trapped a malevolent spirit. It is the source of our family's curse. Destroying it may end the line of darkness." Clara's eyes widened. "There's another vessel older than the doll. A vault." Lisa's hand trembled. "We need to find it." Clara closed the letters and slid the journal into her bag. "The vault must be beneath the house, probably under the attic's floor. That passage we crawled through, it might lead to the vault entrance." She shone the flashlight at the back wall of the crawl space. Faint outlines of a larger doorframe showed beneath the plaster. Lisa knelt and brushed away dust. "There's a seam here. If we remove these boards—" They worked swiftly, prying loose boards until a larger hidden door swung open on rusty hinges. Beyond lay a stone-lined shaft descending into darkness. A spiral staircase, hewn from rock, wound downward. Clara steadied the flashlight. "This is it! The family vault!" They descended the staircase, the air growing colder and damp. The steps ended in a low-ceilinged chamber. Torches in iron sconces lined the walls, their flames scuttering with ancient draughts. At the center stood a stone sarcophagus, carved with Harper family crests and cryptic runes. Lisa swallowed. This must be it. The vessel Annalise wrote of. Clara approached the sarcophagus. The lid bore a carved inscription. In darkness bound, the evil sleeps. Break the seal, and all shall weep. Clara pressed her hand against the stone. We have to destroy it. She looked to Lisa. But how? Lisa pointed to a pile of wrought iron spikes in a corner. These might work as tools. They set to work, chipping at the lid with spikes and crowbar. The stone groaned. Cracks formed along the carved runes. Dust and fragments rained down. With a final strike, the lid fractured, and a gout of black mist burst forth, hissing like a wounded beast. Clara staggered back, coughing. The mist coalesced into a shape, a twisted, shadowy figure, its eyes burning with malice. Lisa screamed. Clara held her arm out as though to protect her friend. Now! Use the journal! Burn it! She shouted. Lisa grabbed the leather-bound diary and flung it onto the cracks in the lid. Clara tossed in the locket and the bundle of letters. The pages ignited, flames licking the stone. The mist writhed and howled, recoiling from the fire. The runes on the sarcophagus glowed red-hot, then shattered like glass. The shadow shrieked, a sound of pure agony, before dissipating into a swirl of embers. Silence descended. Clara and Lisa watched as the fire consumed the journal and letters. The torches guttered out, and the chamber plunged into darkness. Clara fumbled for her flashlight. The sarcophagus lay open, empty. The source of the Harper family's curse was no more. They climbed back up the spiral staircase, emerging into the attic crawlspace. Clara closed the hidden door behind them and nailed it shut. They crawled back through the passage, hearts pounding, until they reached the attic proper. The morning light had shifted, casting warm hues across the dusty rafters. Clara collapsed onto a crate. "It's over," she whispered. Lisa sat beside her, breathing heavily. The secrets in the attic, now laid to rest. Clara placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. "Let's seal this place for good. No more hidden doors, no more secrets." Together, they gathered their tools and descended from the attic. The Harper estate, with all its shadows and whispers, had finally surrendered its darkest secrets. And for Clara Harper, the legacy of her ancestors could at last be laid to rest. Unspoken sorrow. Morning light streamed through the lace curtains of Clara Harper's bedroom, casting delicate patterns on the quilt she had fallen asleep under. She awoke with a start, the events of the previous night flooding back, the shattered vault, the black mist dissipating, the crackling flames consuming Annalise's journal. The Harper estate, once a nexus of ancient curses and restless spirits, lay silent. Yet Clara's heart felt heavy. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and sat for a moment, listening. No whispers, no creaks, only the steady ticking of the mantel clock. She drew a breath and rose, dressing in calm determination. Today, she would face the unspoken sorrow that lingered in the house's walls. Downstairs, she found Lisa in the kitchen, preparing tea. The china teapot was the same her grandmother used. Its floral pattern seemed a comforting link to the past. "Morning," Clara said softly. Lisa turned, offering a small smile. "You look tired." Clara poured 2 cups. "I am, but I can't ignore what happened. We destroyed the curse, but I feel grief. Like someone's tears still stain these walls." Lisa accepted the cup. Annalise's sorrow. She loved her daughter fiercely. Even after everything, that love was unbroken. Clara nodded. "And my grandmother? She left me a house filled with secrets. I owe her understanding." She sipped the tea, its warmth soothing. "Let's find her journals, the ones Jonathan Hale said to remove. Maybe they contain words of hope, not just rituals." They searched the study first, combing through shelves cleared of arcane texts. Behind a false back panel in a low bookcase, Clara found a leather portfolio stamped with Grandmother Harper's initials. "Here," she whispered. Opening it, inside lay letters, photographs, and a small stack of diaries bound in navy leather. The top diary bore the date 1942. Lisa peered over Clara's shoulder. "This is your grandmother's handwriting." Clara turned the first page. The entry read, "June 15th, 1942. Today I walked through these halls and felt their weight for the first time. My mother never spoke of Eliza, yet her portrait gazes down from the parlor like an accusation. I must write my way through this house's grief." Clara's voice trembled. She felt it too. They sank into chairs by the desk, reading. Grandmother's words revealed a lifetime of unspoken sorrow, the loss of her own mother. The burdens of family legacy and the fear that history would repeat itself. Yet interwoven with grief were moments of hope, recipes passed down, plans for rose gardens, wishes for a future free of shadows. One entry caught Clara's eye. "September 3rd, 1950. I planted the first black-eyed Susans beneath the oak in memory of Eliza. Each bloom is a promise that love outlasts death." Clara stood and walked to the window overlooking the garden. There, beneath the oak, bright petals glowed in the afternoon sun. "She honored Eliza's memory with flowers," Clara said, "not just rituals." They spent the afternoon restoring the study to a place of warmth. Clara arranged family photographs on the mantel. Her grandmother as a young woman, smiling. Annalise's faded portrait, now accompanied by a small vase of Susans. Lisa dusted the shelves. It's like the house is breathing again. Clara found a final letter in the portfolio, addressed to her. "My dearest Clara, if these words reach you, know that I loved this house as much as I feared it. May you find peace here, and may our family's story end in light." She held the letter to her chest, tears brimming. "She trusted me with her sorrow," Clara whispered. That evening, Clara and Lisa walked the garden paths. The air cool and fragrant with earth and blooms. The oak's branches stretched overhead, its trunk gnarled with age and memory. "Do you think it's truly over?" Lisa asked, kicking at a fallen leaf. Clara gazed at the Susans. "The curse is gone, but sorrow, that remains. We can't erase grief, only honor it." She bent to touch a petal. Eliza's laughter once echoed here. Now these flowers are her voice. They stood in silence as dusk deepened. Clara closed her eyes, listening not for whispers, but for the soft rustle of leaves. Back inside, Clara climbed to the attic one last time, carrying a single Susan's bloom. She placed it on the floor where Annalise's altar once stood. The room was empty, but Clara felt a gentle presence. She knelt and spoke softly. "Annalise, Eliza, grandmother, your stories have been heard, your sorrows honored. May you find rest in the light you left behind." She stood, brushing away tears. Lisa joined her at the ladder. "Thank you," Clara said. Together, they descended, closing the attic door with reverence. Clara returned to her bedroom and placed the final diary and letter in the wooden box on her bedside table. She locked it, the click echoing like a benediction. Lying in bed, Clara stared at the moonlit ceiling. The house was still. No creaks, no whispers, only the soft rhythm of her own breathing. She exhaled, letting the sorrow she had carried transform into peace. Tomorrow, she would tend the garden and write her own chapter of hope. For Clara Harper, the unspoken sorrow had become a legacy of love and finally a story of light. The doll's demand. A week passed in tentative peace. The Harper estate had settled into a quiet rhythm, one shaped by sunlight through sheer curtains, birdsong in the garden, and the faint scent of black-eyed Susans blooming beneath the oak. Clara Harper began to reclaim her life, one morning tea and evening journal entry at a time. But peace has a way of cracking in places unseen. One morning, Lisa called Clara into the living room with a tremor in her voice. "Clara, you need to see this." On the mantel, where only family portraits and a small vase of flowers had stood, now sat something foreign, something wrong. The porcelain doll, her head tilted slightly to one side, hair impeccably braided in a ribbon that Clara had burned in the fire pit. Her eyes, glass and unblinking, gazed directly at Clara. Clara backed away. "No, that can't be. We burned it. I watched it turn to ash." Lisa's hand trembled as she reached toward the doll, but before she could touch it, the air grew cold. A low creaking echoed from the hallway, though no one had moved. Clara snatched the doll and placed it inside a locked cabinet. "We must have missed something. Maybe it wasn't fully destroyed." Lisa shook her head. Or maybe it wasn't the doll that was cursed. Maybe it was always the bond. That night, Clara dreamed. She stood in a child's nursery filled with moonlight. Rocking chairs moved on their own, toys whispered, and at the center, Eliza stood holding the doll. "You freed me," Eliza said softly. Her voice layered with something older and darker. But the promise has not been kept. Clara tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. Eliza extended the doll. "She wants a body." Clara woke with a start, soaked in sweat, her palm throbbing as if freshly cut. Over the next days, the doll moved, from the cabinet to Clara's desk, from the hallway to her bed. Notes began to appear in Clara's handwriting, but she hadn't written them. "You took her name. You took her place. What will you give in return?" Lisa grew pale. "Clara, what if it was never Eliza asking to be freed? What if something else was bound to the doll?" Clara clutched her grandmother's final letter. She said the doll was a promise, a vessel, a mother's last hope. Lisa whispered. And now the vessel wants to be filled again. Jonathan Hale returned, summoned by Clara's urgent letter. He arrived at twilight, rain streaking his coat, his expression unreadable. After inspecting the doll, he nodded grimly. This is no longer the same entity you tried to release. He lit a candle and set it beside the doll. The flame flickered erratically, then bent toward the porcelain face. Hale's eyes narrowed. It feeds on memory, on blood. This is a remnant of something older than Eliza, older than your grandmother's rituals. Clara whispered, "What does it want?" Hale met her gaze. A name, a body, and a keeper. They prepared another ritual, this one drawn from Hale's deepest archives. It called not for release, but for recognition, to name the entity and thus bind or banish it. Clara and Lisa stood within a salt circle as Hale chanted. The doll sat in the center, eyes gleaming with wet light. "Speak your name," Hale commanded. The doll's mouth cracked open. From the tiny ruined jaw, a whisper seeped out. Maribeth. The lights in the house died. Shadows rushed through the room like a storm wind. Clara felt her mind flicker. A vision flooded her senses. A girl buried alive beneath the floorboards, hands clawing, heart still beating. She screamed. The candle flared. Hale completed the chant. The shadows halted, frozen like smoke trapped in amber. The doll shuddered, then went still. Hale fell to his knees. The entity is named Maribeth. She was not Harper blood. She was a spirit grafted to the bloodline. Likely an orphan taken in for reasons unholy. Clara rocked back and forth. She wants a life. She was promised one, Hale said, and someone, maybe Annalise, bound her to the doll, a living vessel denied form. Lisa stepped forward. Can we banish her? Hale hesitated. Not without cost. You must either give her a name in death or a new name in life. Clara's voice barely carried. And if I name her? She becomes part of you forever. That night, Clara sat alone with the doll. Its eyes no longer followed her. Its presence was calm, waiting. She placed a hand on its cold porcelain face. You were forgotten, buried, but not unloved. I will not give you my body, but I will give you a name. The doll shimmered faintly. Maribeth Harper, Clara whispered. You are seen. You are known. A soft breath seemed to pass through the room. The doll closed its eyes. In the morning, the doll was gone. Only a single black-eyed Susan lay on Clara's pillow. Lisa entered with tea. Did she leave? Clara nodded. She let go. Maybe naming her was enough. Lisa sat beside her. Will she come back? Clara smiled faintly. If she does, I'll be ready. Not with fear, but with memory. Together they walked the garden, past the oak tree, where a new bloom had opened, a name unspoken now remembered, a demand finally answered, and in the earth peace grew. The final bloom. Spring arrived at the Harper estate with gentle insistence. The ground, once brittle with frost and memory, now teemed with green shoots and budding life. Clara Harper moved through the garden each morning with pruning shears in hand and a quiet determination in her step. Beneath the old oak tree, the black-eyed Susans had multiplied. The doll was gone. No footsteps echoed in the night. No whispers curled through the halls. For the first time in generations, the house held nothing but breath and light. Lisa noticed it first, the way Clara carried herself differently. "You're not afraid anymore," she said one morning over tea. Clara smiled. "I still hear echoes, but they don't haunt me. They guide me." Lisa nodded. "Have you decided about what to do with this place?" Clara looked out the window toward the garden. "I think it's time the house opened its doors again." Within a month, the Harper estate was no longer just a home, but a sanctuary. Clara turned the East Wing into a space for grieving families. Those who had lost someone, mothers, daughters, sisters, came to the manor to find silence, memory, and healing. The garden bloomed brighter than it had in decades. Lisa painted again. Her canvases lined the main hall, capturing faces she saw in dreams and the colors of rebirth. One painting, hung beside the fireplace, showed a young girl beneath an oak tree, reaching toward a single black-eyed Susan. Visitors asked who she was. Clara simply said, "Her name is Maribeth." One evening, Clara found an envelope tucked beneath her pillow. No footsteps had marked the floor. No creak announced its arrival. Just the envelope, cream-colored. Sealed in wax, inside was a note in looping handwriting. "You remembered me. I remember you. The soil is warm. The roots are deep. I bloom." Beside the note, a petal. Perfect. Preserved. Clara pressed it between the final pages of her grandmother's journal. The attic remained locked, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Within it sat only the wooden altar, now bare, and a vase of wildflowers that never wilted. No rituals, no chants, just sunlight through the high window and the sound of the wind whispering peace. On the anniversary of the final ritual, Clara held a gathering beneath the oak. She read from her grandmother's diary, shared Eliza's lullaby, and planted a circle of flowers in memory of the women who had lived and died within the manor's walls. Lisa played soft music. Children ran through the grass. There was laughter, not whispers. Light, not shadows. That night, Clara sat by the fireplace, the painting of Maribeth casting gentle shadows behind her. She held her journal, its pages nearly full. Her final entry read, "Tonight, I write not to remember the dead, but to honor the living. This house has known sorrow, yes, but it has also known grace. Maribeth was never just a curse. She was a voice, waiting to be heard. I heard her, and she bloomed. We all did." Clara closed the journal and placed it on the shelf beside the others. The house exhaled. Outside, a breeze carried petals through the moonlight, and the Harper estate, for the first time in a century, truly rested.